So I just spent the last few days platinuming and 100%ing Sonic Frontiers, and wow, what a game. What a game. It's no secret that in the last few years, us Sonic fans have been foaming at the mouth for anything special to latch onto since 2011. Lost World, while bold, unique, and competent, didn't accomplish anything special. Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, while ambitious and full of potential, was the second biggest disaster in the franchise's long history. And even though Sonic Forces should have been a home run, linear stages, a 4-hour playtime at best, and horrendous writing weighed it down substantially. All of this, along with disliked ports we've gotten recently, have made longtime fans, including myself, very cautious of Sonic Team's future projects. Sonic Frontiers was no exception to this when it was first announced, and I honestly didn't know what to think. Now having fully completed it, I can sit here and say with full confidence and joy that Sonic Frontiers is one of the best games I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. Let me clarify, when I say one of the best games, I'm not speaking anywhere near an objective lens. Even though I love Sonic Frontiers, I acknowledge it's not particularly revolutionary or innovative on a scale larger than the series is attached to. But, as a hardcore Sonic fan, Sonic Frontiers has brought me an amount of happiness few games nowadays are able to. I rarely sit down for a few hours at a time and just play a game to play it, mostly due to my less than stellar attention span, and yet Sonic Frontiers had me stuck to it like glue for 3 days straight, resulting in me dumping 31 hours of my time into it. Keep in mind that Sonic Forces has been out for 5 years and I've beaten it multiple times, and yet my time on Frontiers has beat it by an hour. On my first playthrough. I adore this game and have so much to say about it. The game begins with Sonic, Amy, and Tails investigating irregular activity with the Chaos Emeralds when all of a sudden the tornado is pulled into a strange portal. After escaping a strange purgatory of sorts in the form of Green Hill, Sonic is stranded on the Starfall Islands and has to find a way to restore his digitized friends, get to the bottom of what's happening here, and destroy the native Titans. The first thing that's blatantly apparent is that this game went ahead and did it. We now have control as Sonic in a fully open environment. When I first heard this, I was very skeptical of how an open zone game was going to play, since I feared an uninspired game only concerned with chasing trends would only lead to slowing our Blue Blur down. How wrong I was. Never in a series have you been gifted with so much freedom. The Starfall Islands feel great to traverse and move around in. Unlike more recent entries, no corners are cut, there are no catches. This is a fully open 3D Sonic game. Not only do the individual biomes you visit offer their own personality, but they each contain an abundance of cool terrain and platforming opportunities to keep the gameplay loop constantly engaging. It never feels boring exploring these islands. Sure, open world games have been done an abundance of times, but this is Sonic's open world game. Speaking of which, Sonic himself feels really good to control. He still keeps his boost era handling, but instead of making levels feel too short or too easy, here in an open zone format it only further immerses you in Sonic's shoes and makes for some cool traversal. I also love the boost chains. Instead of acquiring rings or boost power-ups, it's a natural thing you can do that gets even faster if you fill your ring meter. A cool way to make rings have a form of importance other than health. But what is the overall objective of Frontiers? Well, this game is basically one large collectathon. In order to free his trapped friends, Sonic needs to gather the Chaos Emeralds for an opportunity to face each Titan that are all native to a select biome. After a Titan is beaten, Sonic will travel to the next island where the cycle repeats, but this time with a different character and obstacles. I absolutely love how this game makes the franchise tread new territory while simultaneously bringing back the main objective of older titles, that be to find and collect all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds. Don't get me wrong, the recent games were a nice break from the old formula, but I've missed the Emeralds and I'm glad they once again take center stage in a mainline Sonic game. There are 2 things you need to do to get the Emeralds, which the general gameplay comprises of: exploring the island and taking on its platforming challenges to find a select character's lost memories, or getting vault keys from cyberspace stages to unlock vaults containing the Emeralds. You'll spend most of your time collecting lost memories, and since traversing these environments are tons of fun, this will be too. However, you can't easily locate where these memories are without a proper map, and the only way to unlock said map is by completing the island side quests, which vary between puzzles or challenges. These side quests are never really particularly difficult, most of them are relatively short, but they mostly serve to keep you busy and give you a way to gradually unlock your map, which I do appreciate, and some of them can be surprisingly fun. So yeah, if you haven't taken the hint, there is a lot to do on these islands, and I love it. The game constantly keeps you busy, and it feels rewarding to slowly but surely complete your map and chip away at all that grey space. but side quests and lost memories aren't the only things keeping you busy. The Starfall Islands aren't without their enemy combatants, and throughout your journey, you will have to face a variety of unique robots that you have to dispatch through combat. No, I mean real combat. A simple home attack might cut it for some enemies early on in the game, but not forever. It's time for Sonic to upgrade. Along with natural attacks like the home attack, jump, and flash-like beatdown, Sonic can gain more abilities by using skill points earned from collecting skill pieces by beating enemies and breaking blocks to fill out his skill tree. The abilities you unlock range from alright like the stomp attack and air trick, to completely badass like the spin dash and recovery attack, to nearly broken like Phantom Rush and Sonic Boom. All these abilities are fire, and what makes combat so engaging is you can even chain them up in combos to deal significant damage in short bursts of time. I love the combat, and it's even more fun when you consider the wide range of enemies there are. Regular robots typically come in groups, and each enemy type has a unique attack and design. Fighting these guys is cool and will typically reward you with some low value materials such as skill pieces, seeds of power, and seeds of defense. The two aforementioned items are things you can collect and bring to the Hermit Coco in exchange for stat increases that will upgrade your attacks as well as your defense. You can also upgrade your speed and wing capacity by collecting Coco, who are an adorable native species of the islands, and bringing them to the Elder Coco. While the skill tree can be completed about halfway through the game, these stat increases will need continuous upgrading even after the story is completed, and they're a nice reward for combat as well as further exploration. God, there's so much to do in this game, I love it. You really do get your bang for your buck with this one. And yes, these stat increases and new abilities are worth it if you want to have an easier time with the Guardians, special robots who roam the island and come in many shapes and sizes. These enemies are especially fun to fight since they're all sub-bosses with unique battles to keep the gameplay as fresh as a tomato. Seriously, I loved taking on each of these Guardians, and that where combat is intensified the highest. Well, except for the elephant in the room, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Defeating Guardians rewards you with portal gears that are required to access cyberstage portals, making them very much worth the trouble. Oh yeah, cyberstages, everyone's favorite part of the game. If you couldn't tell from my extreme sarcasm, this aspect of the experience is definitely the weakest. Look, I actually think the concept is great. In order to get vault keys, you have to complete traditional Sonic stages as well as the challenges within them such as collecting red rings and S rings. This brings a lot of familiarity to the game, which is a good idea since this is unlike any Sonic game that has ever come out before, and I happen to be a fan of 2D Sonic Boost stages, if done right. And right out of the gate, I have to say that I don't hate the cyber stages, but I don't particularly love them either. Starting with the positives, the layout of a lot of these stages are really good. A lot of them have multiple pathways, and it can feel rewarding to take advantage of a particular shortcut. Second, the tracks are dope. I haven't said much about this game's OST, but in case you were curious, it's amazing, and the cyberspace themes reflect that. And third, the challenges are fun. In the past Mana games, things like S-ranks, red wings, and ring capacity only had any actual value for completionists. Here, however, they each reward you with vault keys, giving each challenge a heavy incentive to complete. And what can I say, it felt good repeatedly going for S-ranks. Especially since the criteria for an S-rank require you to actually do good and waste no time, rewarding you for near flawless runs. With that out of the way, we gotta talk about the negatives. The controls just aren't great. They're extremely stiff and are a far cry from something we'd see in Generations or Unleashed. Heck, even Forces feels better to play, though I do think the cyberspace levels beat out Forces by a small margin because of the non-linear designs. Second, the home attack is super slow, which isn't an issue in itself, but it can be very detrimental if you're trying to go for an S. It's just sad to see since home attacking used to be crucial to keep your momentum in the past games. Third, the reused locations. Listen, revisiting locations like Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Sky Sanctuary would be cool if they haven't been shoved down our throats in the past few games. These reused assets may have been a budget issue, and if so, I'll be more understanding, but seriously, I'm getting exhausted of the nostalgia bait. Just give us new modern Sonic zones that don't play themselves, and that'll be a first since 2013's Lost World. 2010 Sonic Colors if we're only talking about boost gameplay. Though, seeing Cityscape again was kinda nice, and it's definitely the most interesting visually. Lastly, the goddamn 2D sections. They have to stop. I never thought modern Sonic controlled well in a 2D format, and with the stiffness of the cyber stages, ugh. I actually think the cyber stages for the most part, even with the bad controls, can still be bearable, and in a lot of cases, even enjoyable if the level design is good enough. But all the 2D stages can go. And look, I'm not saying that because I'm some classic Sonic hater. I make it no secret that the adventure era of Sonic is my favorite, but games like Sonic Mania and Sonic CD I adore, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is still one of my favorite games in the series. But if you want to make 2D Sonic stages, then just make another classic Sonic game. Give us a Sonic Mania 2 or a Sonic the Hedgehog 5 or whatever. But if you're going through the trouble of making a big budget 3D Sonic game, keep the levels 3D. I'm sorry for the tangent, but I've been holding this in for a while. It always bugged me how 2D desperately tries to be incorporated into modern Sonic's gameplay just for it to result in the weakest levels in the game. But I digress. Even though I have my frustrations, I do appreciate the Cyber Stages inclusion overall. I did have fun playing them from time to time, and having traditional Sonic gameplay here helps older fans avoid getting too homesick with this new open zone format. Unfortunately, this is the weakest modern Sonic has ever controlled by far. And whether you like them or not, they are worth doing since the vault keys you gain from them are necessary for the Chaos Emeralds. And once you collect all 6 of the emeralds available in the biome via vault keys and lost memories, the coolest highlights of the game are made available. The climax of each biome. The Titan boss fights. Where do I even start? On each island, there's a unique Titan whom Sonic can only beat by turning into a super form. With the last emerald on each of the Titans' heads, you're tasked with scaling each of these colossal Titans and collecting that last emerald for a special treat. You have no idea how far my mouth dropped when only a quarter through the game, this happens. Yes, these supersonic battles against the Starfall Island's Titans are the main boss fights of the game, and I am not exaggerating when I say these fights achieve 2 things. They're the best boss fights in the entire series, and this is the coolest Supersonic has ever been. During these fights, Supersonic still has the same moveset and combos as his regular form, except it's significantly enhanced and are cranked up in spectacle. The main challenge of these fights are to destroy your opponents before your rings run out, which can only be done with speedy attacks and accurate parrying. These fights are actual battles that have some of the biggest spectacles in any Sonic game ever. They demonstrate the power of Supersonic like nothing has ever before. You cannot tell me the inner child in you doesn't scream when you see Supersonic push back a mouth laser beam or slice a giant in half with its own sword. The tracks that play during these are also nothing short of phenomenal, and really adds to the over-the-top anime-esque beauty on display here. Seriously, these fights are awesome. We've covered most of what this game has to offer, but of course we just have to talk about the story. Look, we can't ignore the elephant in the room. Sonic stories have sucked recently. No, not the movies. Sonic Colors, while a breath of fresh air, has questionable dialogue and next to no plot. Sonic Generations' story was fine for what it was, but again, pretty lackluster. I think Lost Road's narrative is shockingly underrated, but I do admit it does suffer from common issues that plagued the meta era. Forces was a complete train wreck that took an amazing idea and squandered it with abysmal writing at every turn. And Team Sonic Racing's was, like Generations, fine for what it was, but definitely nothing special. Say what you will about the quote-unquote dark age of Sonic, but Adventure 1 all the way to Unleashed told compelling narratives that did justice to nearly every mainline character, and I've missed that level of quality in Sonic narratives. I commend Forces for at least attempting to play things serious, but what resulted was a melodramatic mess. I say all of that so you can understand why Frontiers is as important as it is. Ian Flynn, a longtime writer of the comics and scriptwriter of this game, has finally done it. Sonic Frontiers has the best story in the series since Adventure 2, and no, I don't mean that lightly. Immediately, it's apparent that Frontiers treats its characters as well as this beloved world with so much care and respect, and I have a lot to say about it, so buckle in. Out the gate, I was very fascinated with the Starfall Islands and had many questions like, who are these Cocos? What is Eggman scheming this time? What is cyberspace? Whom is this mysterious voice guiding us? There's just so much intrigue within the first few minutes of playing, but what really makes the story for me are the characters and their interactions. This is the most faithful and real these characters have been in literal years. No, in literal decades. Sonic is back. Instead of being a one-note jokester who never takes anything seriously, Sonic is actually mature. Don't get me wrong, he's that same cocky, nonchalant, quippy hedgehog we know and love, but there's a level of depth to him present. When things get serious, Sonic isn't cracking jokes, he is genuinely concerned. When a hostile threat approaches Sonic, he isn't making a pun and instantly trying to take her down, he's being reasonable and trying to talk things out. What sets this Sonic apart from the depictions we've seen as of late is you can genuinely believe this guy is a hero, mostly due to his maturity and selfless instinct hidden under his confident exterior. And I absolutely love the corruption subplot. With every one of Sonic's friends that he frees, the more corrupted he gets, and throughout the game, you see him slowly wear out and be on the brink of collapse. You see him actively hiding his pain from his friends as to reassure them and be the hero he needs to be, that they need him to be. One of the most powerful moments of this game is seeing Sonic barely able to even stand, and yet he smiles and trudges forward, completely baffling Sage. She doesn't know it, but he's smiling because he knows that in his heart, everything is going to be alright. This game perfectly captures what makes Sonic, well, Sonic. Amy is also depicted greatly as well. She has the typical charm and feminine characteristics seen in the past, except her dialogue all around is great. And her being inspired by the ancients' lost civilization to make the most of life and share her love of the world is a beautiful step for a character to take. Knuckles is the best he's been in years. No, he is no longer a bumbling goofball, he is the Knuckles the Echidna. This Knuckles is a tough, no-nonsense badass we've seen sorely missing, and his dialogue with Sonic is among the best the game has to offer. Seriously, the friendly rivalry between these two is played up to its max and it's so adorable. And oh my god, how did they do it? How did they fix Tails, a character who, along with Shadow, had his character assassinated to oblivion? Well, I'll tell you how. They acknowledged the problem head on. I'm not even kidding, the madman did it. Ian took Tails' mischaracterization and forces and makes it an actual character flaw that he feels guilty for. At the same time, all of Tails' long forgotten growth in SA1 and SA2 is properly acknowledged in a way that doesn't feel shoved in. And with that, this character is back on the right track and we get multiple hints at a severe character transformation we'll see play out. I've seen some people say they should have just ignored the bad writing and not addressed it, but I completely disagree. Ignoring the problem would just make it worse, and I commend Ian for tackling it head on. And that's another thing I love about Ian's storytelling. It's clear that he loves and appreciates all aspects of this series' long history, and rather than ignore what didn't work, he embraces it in his work. Seeing callbacks to Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic Riders, and The Lost World made me lose my mind. Not just because of the fanboy within me, but because I genuinely feared Sega was going to unofficially disassociate a lot of the older early 2000 games from canon due to their not so great reputation. But no, every game still matters, really solidifying this as an actual overarching series as opposed to a bunch of loosely connected tales that fall under the same brand. Back to the characters, Dr. Eggman is back and is written perfectly here. He's a genius, too ambitious for his own good, finds joy in Sonic's misery, he's good old classic Eggman. At first. This leads us to the newcomer, Sage, who is probably the best character in the whole game. This antagonist is initially super mysterious and starts out with an ice-cold, emotionless demeanor and attitude. But then we find out she's one of Eggman's creations, and I mean, simple enough, she's another henchman hell-bent on following orders and nothing. Oh my god, she's not. Sage is in many aspects an adolescent AI child who wants nothing but a loving family. A family she sees with her father, Eggman, and her brother she's yet to meet, Orbot and Cubot. While she's very cold and distant with Sonic, she's warm and kind to Eggman and wants nothing but to keep him safe and make him happy. And what's even crazier is this is not a one-way relationship. Yes, Eggman loves Sage. Maybe not at first, but if you view the Egg memos, you see how this narcissistic madman begins viewing Sage as more than just a program. Because that's what she is. She's more than AI. She's Eggman's daughter. As the game progresses, that woman side to Sage begins showing up more when she realizes that Sonic and his friends are good people. Not only are they good people, but they represent the only thing she so desperately wants. A loving family. During the 4th island, we finally learn about what's going on. The ancients were an extraterrestrial species who fled from their home planet to escape a world-ending monster. They found Earth, inhabited these islands, and brought powerful gems with them native to their home world. That's right, the Chaos Emeralds. After realizing the monster is in pursuit and on its way to Earth, each of the ancients built titans to defend their home, but during the battle, one of the ancients binds the creature with his titan, sacrificing himself in the process. The titan is locked away with the creature trapped inside. I love all of this. Not only does this provide such a cool background to the game's lore, but it's so chilling now knowing where these emeralds come from after 31 years. And yes, Chaos from Sonic Adventure is the same species as the ancients, and that's just so fucking cool. It turns out the voice that's been guiding us in full Mortal Kombat Deception style turns out to be the creature, and Sonic unknowingly frees it. Not at his limit when it comes to cyber corruption, Sonic's friends show up in the nick of time, and here they save him this time by taking the full front of the cyber corruption, only leaving Eggman, Sage, and Sonic to make a last-minute alliance. God, I love it when these two team up, and their dynamic is great in this.
Sonic, I hereby induct you into the Eggman Empire and order you to save us all. Understand? This is not an alliance.
If that's how you want to spin it, Dr. Ego Man.
All this accumulates in an over-the-top final fight of the last Titan that gets defeated, but the entity lives on and regains its natural form in space. This leaves Super Sonic and Sage to team up and take it on, and it's here where, after an intense battle and a long journey, Sage sacrifices herself to save all of mankind. Back on the island, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy prepare to take off and embark on journeys of their own, personal journeys that this adventure inspired them to go on. They all leave, as meanwhile, Eggman stares somberly at the sky, desperately looking for any sign of his daughter, but is left with the reality that she is gone. It's on that heartbreaking shot where Eggman actually lost his time, and we end the story there. And wow, what a remarkable narrative. The many mysteries of the Starfall Islands receive fascinating answers that further builds in the series' lore. All these characters, their interactions, and dynamics are at their peak here and handled beautifully. Ian Flynn and the other writers outdid themselves with the story. Just a few quick side notes before we wrap up. I think the big minigame is a nice way to provide players with a nice, relaxing alternative to gain important items. The Chaos Island is fun, but can be very annoying to traverse, especially with its abundance of 2D segments. The fact Nate's Wants to Battle was able to make an official Sonic song is amazing. The game looks great on PS5 and kept a consistent frame rate, even though there is a lot of pop-in. And the stinger revealing Sage will most likely return has me excited. Oh, and the voice actors completely nailed their performances in this game. So, that was all of my thoughts on Sonic Frontiers, and wow, what a game. What a game. This is, to me personally, not only the best Sonic game I've ever played, but definitely one of the best games I've ever played. Not because it's perfect, because it's not, but because there is so much to love. Sonic in this open zone format works astronomically well. The collectathon aspects are always inviting and never intimidating. The general platforming is fun. The cyber stages are an addition I'm fine with, even if they have some problems. The boss fights are perfect, the OST is amazing, and the story is phenomenal. I love this game, and I don't know where this series is going to go from here. Will we get an open zone sequel? Will Sonic Team revert back to the boost formula but refine it once more? Who knows? As long as it's good, that's all I care about. But one thing is for sure, as a Sonic fan, I'll play it no matter what, and if it's even half as good as Frontiers, I'm in for a treat.